this is just some practice with a couple extra proof. There's 2 of them on here. And really, I just want to kind of show you my thought process, kind of how I'm thinking out loud. I wanted to show you what to do if you don't know where to start. There's a couple different strategies for that. So with this first one, I first want to mark down A is parallel to B, and L and M are parallel. So I like to mark those down so I know that. Then it says angle 1 is supplementary to angle 11. Now we can't mark that on our paper yet because we're not sure. We have to prove it. We're not sure if that's true yet. However, I'm going to just kind of put an underline around angle 1 and 11 so we know kind of where we're going. Now the first thing is obviously it helps to kind of have a little plan. I don't have any properties that talk about how these angles are related to these angles. I can talk about how these angles are related to these, where you can take L and M are parallel lines and B is the transversal, or I can talk about how these angles are related to these, where you talk about A and B are parallel lines and L is transversal. But there's nothing that goes from angles 1, 2, 3, and 4 to angles 10, 9, 11, 12. So the basic overall plan for this one is before I just jump down to 9, 10, 11, and 12, I'm going to have to go to either 14, 13, 14, 15, 16, or 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to actually go to these angles first. So I'm going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to relate those to these angles, and then I'm going to relate those angles to 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that's kind of the first thing where I'm going to go with this. So that kind of helps. So we're actually going to try not to use these. You could, but we're not going to for this example. So now I'm going to start listing some things I know. So obviously, I'm going to start with angle 1. We are trying to go from angle 1 to angle 11, or at least you could go from angle 11 to angle 1, but those are the 2 we're working with. So I'm going to start with 1. So I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 15 because they're corresponding. I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 13 because they're alternate exterior. We could also list some things that are supplementary. So I know angle 1 is supplementary to angle 4. And then there's a couple other things like angle 1 and angle 16 are also supplementary, but that's going to take an extra couple steps in our proof. So right now I'm just doing kind of one step. And again, there's other ones, angle 1 and 2. I don't think you'll need that, but I guess you could use that. Those are supplementary, angle 1 and angle 2. So I'm just jotting down some notes that we know. We might use these, we might not, but that's just a good starting point of just a couple things that we can use. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at number 11. I'm going to kind of work backwards. So the same thing we did with number 1, just with number 11. So I know angle 11 is congruent to angle 16. I know angle 11 is congruent to angle 14 because those are alternate interior. I know angle 11 is supplementary to angle 13 because those are same side interior. I also know angle 11 is supplementary to angle 10. So far, we haven't done anything with our proof. We just jotted down some notes that maybe are going to help us. So now let's get to our proof. Now, I always start with this just because you at least get some partial credit. If you just say B is parallel to A, L is parallel to M, and I know that because those are given. And again, I mark those on my paper. So now again, I'm going to start with angle 1. Again, you could start with angle 11, and I'm going to go to 13, 14, 15, 16, and then over to 9, 10, 11, and 12. So how should I go from 1 to, which one should I use? So one thing you can do is you can look at the list you made here in the blue and in the green and see if there's any relationships that talk about the same angles. So for instance, this one has 13. Use red, so it's different. This one has 13, this one has 13. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 13, and angle 11 is supplementary to 13, so that'd be one we could use. Doesn't look like there's any other ones that we have listed, but again, we didn't list all of them, we just listed a couple, but that's a good lead. I'm going to try to do that. And again, sometimes it's going to be more than that. So sometimes you won't find any relationships, and you just kind of have to start and see where you can go. So since we had that, let's go ahead and start with that one. So I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 13, and I know that because parallel lines, if and only if, oh, sorry, that's alternate exterior. alternate exterior angles are congruent. Sorry, ran out of space. So I proved angle 1 is congruent to angle 13. So then I know, so I proved this part. So now I'm going to say angle 11. All right, let's do angle 13. Let's start with that one because that's kind of where we left off. 1 goes to 13. 13 is supplementary to angle 11. Going to run out of room on this one too. And that is the parallel lines, if and only if same side interior angles are supplementary. So sorry it's getting a little messy because I'm running out of room, but that's it. Actually, let's rewrite this real quick over here. Parallel lines, if and only if same side interior angles are supplementary. That's a little bit more clean. If you want to number these to make them look a little bit nicer too, that's not a bad idea. Step 1, 2, and 3. So now we know angle 1 and angle 13 are congruent. I know 13 is supplementary to 11. So that means now if 1 is congruent to 13 and 13 is supplementary to 11, that means angle 1 has to be supplementary to angle 11. So I know that, but what is the reason? And that is the congruent supplement theorem. And let's see, because I know sometimes I use that and it's not actually the congruent supplement theorem. So 1 is congruent to 13. Yeah, so I don't, angle 1 is congruent to angle 13. 13 is supplementary to 11. So that's not exactly the congruent supplement theorem, but that's what I'm going to use as my reasoning. I'm going to be okay with that. Technically, there's, you could call it substitution is a good one. So if you put this, that's okay. Just to go a little bit further with this one, you could say that, if this makes a little bit more sense. So that means angle 13 plus angle 11 is equal to 180. Anytime you have supplementary angles, if you want to put that, I kind of sometimes think it's a little bit easier because now we're actually looking at some math that we're a little bit more used to. That's the definition of supplementary. And so now I know that angle 1 plus angle 11 is equal to 180 because of substitution. And again, I know that because if angle 1 and angle 13 are congruent, that means I can sub those in for each other. So I can take out 13 and put in angle 1 because they're congruent, they're the same. So then this last step, you could add angle 1 is supplementary to angle 11 because of substitution. So that would actually be more technical. That'd be more correct, I guess. But if you use the congruent supplement theorem, I'll be okay with that. Again, technically, it's not actually the best way to do it, but it'll work for this stuff, I guess I should say. So that's just one way to do this problem. There's several other ways, but that's a good way where if you don't know what to do, you can kind of start. Now again, not to start this over at all, but if you have one that you can't see, like this one, I said 13 was in both of them, and that's really nice to use. But if you can't see that, it might not be that direct. So you might have to go and start by doing, like if I wanted to, this would be overkill, but I could prove angle 1 is congruent to angle 13, angle 13 is congruent to angle 10, and then angle 10 is supplementary to angle 11. So you could have done that one extra step, and that wouldn't have showed up in here. That would have showed 13, and then 13 is congruent to 10, and then we use this one, 11 and 10. So again, there's several other ways to do that, but I just want to kind of show you one of the ways where you kind of saw how I was thinking, and I gave you something to do if you have no idea how to start, because I think some of you guys struggle. You draw a blank after the given. Well, if you know the given, just put stuff, and honestly, if this is all you have on your test, this is not a proof at all. but you know enough stuff that I can give you some partial credit. If this is out of 3 points, maybe that's 1 or 1.5 points just for knowing some of that. So make sure, again, if you don't know what to do, just start writing stuff and it'll either click or you can get some more partial credit. Let's look at this other one. So L and M are parallel. That's the given. So again, I'm going to mark this. I want to prove that angle 7 and angle 1 are supplementary. So again, if you don't know what to do, you can start jotting down some things. I know angle 1, and usually I look at things that are congruent, but again, you might want to add in some things that are supplementary. I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 4 because of vertical angle theorem. I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 5 because they're corresponding. I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 8 because they're alternate exterior. But then you could also add some supplementary stuff. So angle 1 is supplementary to angle 3. Angle 1 is supplementary to angle 2. Now again, I know there's other ones that you could, so I know that angle 1 is supplementary to angle 6 because angle 1 is congruent to angle 4, angle 4 is supplementary to angle 6. So that one's an extra step. So I'm just doing one step right now. So that's all I have right now for 1. Maybe there's extra ones. Maybe I forgot one, but that's okay. Just get what you can for now and then go on, do number 7, angle 7, and work backwards now. So I know angle 7 is congruent to angle 6, vertical angles. Whoops. I know angle 7 is congruent to angle 3, vertical angles. I know angle 7 is congruent to angle 2. Now some of those supplementary. I know angle 7 is supplementary to angle 5, and I know angle 7 is supplementary to angle 8. So again, there's maybe more that I didn't jot down, but at least we have some sort of start. And maybe we forgot some, that's okay. If it doesn't work out, we can start reevaluating. So again, I'm going to number these just because I think it makes it a little bit more organized, especially since I don't have a lot of space. If you don't, as long as I can tell your steps, that's fine. So I'm always going to start with my given. Now let's step back and let's look at some things we can see. So again, if stuff can match, that's awesome. So I have angle 2 in this one and angle 2 in that one. That looks good. Angle 3, angle 3. That looks like it could work. We have angle 5 and angle 5. Oh, and angle 8 and angle 8. So we have a bunch of different options that we can do with this. A bunch of different options. Just pick one and go with it. So let's do angle 8, just because that's one of my favorite numbers. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 8. We'll start with that one. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 8. And I know that because they're alternate exterior angles. So parallel lines, if and only if alternate exterior angles are congruent. So I said angle 1 and angle 8. Now again, they're talking about supplementary, and so if I were you, I would say that they add up to be 180. Once we know they add up to be 180, we can work backwards to supplementary. And again, you don't necessarily have to, but I think that's a little bit easier to get a really good solid proof. So that means, so I was talking about angle 8. So over here, angle 7 and 8 are supplementary. So again, I'm going to put that they add up to be 180. You could do it in 2 steps if you wanted to, but I would go ahead and do it in 1. Angle 7 plus angle 8 is equal to 180, and that is the linear pair postulate. Now again, I think technically the linear pair postulate says they're supplementary, so you could do that in 2 different steps. You could say 7 and 8 are supplementary because of the linear pair postulate, and then the next one say angle 7 plus angle 8 is 180 by the definition of supplementary. So if you want to do that, you can. That would be a more solid proof, but I'm okay with this. So angle 7 and angle 8 add up to be 180. So not to do the same thing we did to the last one, but that means angle 7 plus angle 1 is equal to 180. And I know that because substitution. So again, since 8 and 1 are congruent. That means they're the exact same angle. So if I see an 8, I can sub in 1. That's what I did. So that means my last step, my proof. Please make sure if you prove angle 1 and angle 7 is 180, this is saying supplementary. So try to go, again, put as much as you can. So try to do one more step. Angle 7 is supplementary to angle 1. And I know that by the definition of supplementary. Because again, if you look at step 4, I proved they add up to be 180 with substitution. So if they add up to be 180, that means they have to be supplementary. That's the definition of supplementary. Now again, there's a couple other things you can do. Just like I said, this step 3, you could have split that up into 2 different sections. But I'm okay with that. And again, this is a good way where it gives you something to do if you don't know, if you have no idea, it gives you something to start with. And again, like I said, if you don't have any idea how to do this, if you can just put some of the things down that you know, I will give you partial credit. I've said it numerous times in class. On the test, these are out of 3 points. It is going to be hard to get a 3 out of 3 on this proof. But it's going to be pretty easy to get a 1 out of 3 and just a little harder to get a 2 out of 3. So you can get some partial credit. To get a 0.5 out of 3, all you need is the given. I'll give you 0.5 for that. So make sure you're doing whatever you can. Make sure you're showing all the steps you possibly can think of. Definitely, this is a place where you want to show more steps rather than taking shortcuts. If you're taking shortcuts and trying to write down as little as possible, you're going to miss stuff. You're going to miss points for sure. So make sure you're taking your time and showing everything you can.